Why can't you drink that water? Watch a dog find the dirtiest puddle on the street. Green. Murky. Sitting there since last week. It doesn't hesitate. Head down, drinking, gone in 10 seconds. Do that yourself, and you're in bed for a week. Same species of danger, same water, completely different outcome. And the reason isn't that dogs are tougher, it's that your body used to run the exact same defenses, and then, deliberately, it stopped. Let's start with what's actually happening inside a dog when it drinks something you wouldn't touch. The first layer isn't even the stomach, it's the mouth. Dog saliva isn't just lubrication. It's an active antimicrobial fluid. It contains lysozyme, an enzyme that physically ruptures bacterial cell walls on contact. It contains lactoferrin, a protein that binds iron so tightly that bacteria, which need iron to survive, are effectively starved before they get anywhere. Add peroxidase, another antibacterial compound, and immunoglobulins, antibodies patrolling the mouth itself, and you have a chemical filter working before a single drop reaches the throat. It's not a perfect filter. Dog saliva still carries plenty of bacteria of its own. But it's a real, functioning first defense, and you don't have anything close to this strength in your own mouth. The second layer is where things get genuinely extreme. Human stomach acid sits at a pH between roughly 1.5 and 3.5. That already sounds aggressive. Dogs consistently measure between pH 1 and 1.5, up to 10 times more acidic than yours. For scale, that's acidic enough to dissolve bone. It's why a dog can eat raw meat that would put a person in a hospital. Any bacteria that survives the saliva and makes it into that stomach hits an environment most pathogens simply cannot tolerate. Then there's speed. Dogs have relatively short digestive tracts, and food moves through quickly. Bacteria need time to establish and multiply. In a human gut, food can sit around long enough for harmful bacteria to build a foothold. In a dog, that window is dramatically shorter. The system isn't just aggressive, it's fast, and speed itself is a defense. And underneath all of that sits something even more specific, something built individually over a lifetime. Every animal's gut hosts a vast internal ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes called the microbiome. When a dog drinks regularly from the same stream or the same puddle in the same park, its immune system and microbiome gradually adapt to the specific bacteria living in that exact water. They learn it. The body essentially keeps a running list of what it's already encountered and has a calibrated response ready. This is why a wild animal drinking from a familiar source is in a completely different position from one that suddenly drinks from somewhere new. Familiar bacteria trigger a measured, appropriate response. Genuinely novel pathogens, ones the system has never catalogued, are where real danger begins. It isn't blanket immunity, it's specific familiarity, built through repeated exposure over time. Which is also why suddenly letting a dog that's spent its whole life drinking filtered tap water start casually drinking from unknown outdoor sources isn't actually a safe bet. Its microbiome was never primed for that particular water. Herbivores solve the same problem an entirely different way, and it's worth a brief detour because it shows this isn't one universal trick. It's the same problem solved by completely different architecture. A horse's gastrointestinal tract can hold over 200 liters of material, with a fermentation chamber called the cecum holding around 30 liters on its own. Inside that space lives one of the most dense and diverse microbial communities in the animal kingdom. Thousands of competing bacterial species, all already established, all already claiming every available niche. When a horse drinks in a stray pathogen, that pathogen doesn't land in empty space. It lands in the middle of an ecosystem that has no room left for it. The existing community simply outcompetes the newcomer by sheer occupied territory. It's not acid, it's not speed, it's saturation. A different defense entirely, aimed at the same target. So, 5 separate systems. Chemical saliva, extreme stomach acid, fast transit time, a personally calibrated microbiome, and in herbivores, sheer microbial crowding. All of it across multiple completely different animal lineages converging on the same basic goal: survive contaminated water without needing to purify it first. Which raises the obvious question. You're a mammal too. Where did yours go? You used to have a version of this, not identical, but real. For most of human history, clean, treated water simply didn't exist. People drank from rivers, wells, and streams the same way every other animal did. Waterborne disease was, for most of that history, one of the leading causes of death. And there's real evidence that populations with long-term exposure to specific local water sources developed somewhat more tolerant microbiomes, a milder version of exactly what a dog does with its home puddle. But somewhere along the way, humans stopped solving this problem the way dogs do. We solved it by moving the defense outside the body entirely. We discovered fire. Cooking food kills a huge share of the pathogens in it before it ever reaches your stomach. Eventually, we built water treatment, filtration, boiling, chlorination, entire infrastructure dedicated to removing contamination before a single drop touches your lips. Instead of evolving a gut that could survive contaminated water, we built systems that made sure the water usually wasn't contaminated in the first place. This worked extraordinarily well. Clean water infrastructure is one of the greatest public health achievements in human history, and it has saved hundreds of millions of lives at a scale no internal biological defense ever could. But biology doesn't maintain expensive systems it no longer needs paying for. Once external filtration became reliable, there was no longer strong pressure keeping human stomach acid at maximum aggression, because cooked food arrives with fewer pathogens to begin with. There was no longer strong pressure keeping the human microbiome constantly primed against a wide range of raw environmental bacteria, because most people simply weren't drinking straight from streams anymore. The defenses that weren't actively needed weren't actively maintained. Over generations, they didn't get removed on purpose. They just weren't worth the metabolic cost of keeping sharp. You didn't lose this ability because your body got weaker. You redirected the entire strategy. A dog carries a kill chamber in its stomach everywhere it goes. You built water treatment plants and never have to. And honestly, at scale, across billions of people, your version wins. It's just that it lives outside your body instead of inside it, which means the moment you're somewhere that infrastructure doesn't reach, you're relying on a defense system that was quietly powered down generations ago. Before we finish, an honest note. None of this means drinking untreated water is fine if you're just careful, or that travelers' stomach issues are simply weakness. Contaminated water remains a serious, sometimes fatal risk for humans, specifically because these internal defenses really have been scaled back. This isn't a case for testing your limits. So next time you watch your dog drink from something that looks genuinely hazardous and then trot off completely unbothered, you're not watching a stronger animal laugh at a weaker one. You're watching two different solutions to the exact same problem, arrived at by the exact same evolutionary pressure, and one of them just happens to be sitting in your basement instead of in your stomach. You are not broken, you just outsourced the job.